Joyce Hornady. You might say accuracy is my business. I make bullets.
You are listening to the Hornady Podcast.
Thanks for joining us and enjoy the show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Hornady Podcast. I'm your host, Seth Swerzik. Thanks for tuning in. I've got a couple familiar faces and voices again, people that contribute a lot to the podcast and are always well received by the audience. Senior Ballistician Jayden Quinlan and Assistant Director of Engineering Joe Thielen. Guys, thanks for coming on.
Yep. Thank you, Seth. Good morning.
So we've got a topic that we want to talk about that, you know, we get this question a lot at trade shows or everywhere when we are at a match. People talk about this stuff, and we're going to dive into match ammunition and what match ammo means. What does it mean to be match grade, match quality, match whatever? So we're going to get into that. And before we do, Joe and I were talking here just a few minutes ago before we recorded. Jayden, you weren't up here. And he was talking about getting ready for the Hornady precision rifle match that we have in Utah. And he was helping Jason Hornady get his rifle dialed in. Mm-hmm. And it took all of about 30 whole seconds. That's an overstatement. But it was just bam, 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 10-shot group. Okay, yep, boop, beep, boop, done. Here's your FORDOF file. You're ready to go. That gun's going to be accurate as far as you can shoot it. Mm-hmm. And with the right operator, somebody could win a match with that setup. And it took no time, and it really takes no effort. And we were just talking about how that's really amazing. 5 years ago seems to be the line of demarcation. Prior to that, do you remember 2012, 13, 14 time frame when you would get your .308 Winchester dialed in? You had to hand load for it because you couldn't get that level of accuracy. Then you'd get on JBM ballistics. Then you'd print out a thing, and you'd go out and shoot. Well, that wasn't right. Let me fudge the BC. And then you'd do all this stuff, and then you'd go out to a match, and you'd always miss on your first shot. Then you'd make a correction. And now, fast forward just a little bit, you can get factory ammo in a factory rifle with a free FORDOF app on your cell phone and absolutely shoot the pants off yourself from 10 years ago.
Yeah.
You shoot circles around yourself.
It's incredible. And it's been fun. I mean, I've got to watch it from the beginnings, 18 years ago, and it has been fun to be a part of that, from the bullet development, the tooling, the machines, the presses, to powder, to loading it, more precisely loading it, P&V equipment, testing equipment. Then you get radar and shot marker and all these tools that we've got over the years to utilize here. Has been pretty fun to watch that, morph and develop and evolve.
The technology advancement, it started kind of slow, and then it just built, but now it's exploded. And we've said it before, but rangefinders, optics, bullets, ammo,
barrels,
barrel quality, action quality, stocks, configuration, everything is just advanced to the point where precision rifles become easy. Obviously the manipulation of the firearm and hitting your target and all those shooting fundamentals and the mental geometry to be good at competitive stuff, that's aside. But to get a rifle that is capable of incredible accuracy and repeatability, and to get ammo that is extremely consistent, that's easy nowadays, which is a unique time, because a lot of us, Joe, 18 years ago, you had to order a barrel, then you put it on the lathe, and everything was dialed in perfect, and hand loads were meticulously loaded to the kernel. And now, if you can buy a factory rifle, you can buy a Ruger precision rifle or a Springfield Waypoint or whatever, and have a match accurate rifle, or buy an Action and order a barrel that comes threaded on both ends and chambered. You screw them together, you bolt them into a stock. It's easier than building an AR, and it's 100%. Incredible the amount of precision and accuracy and consistency out of those firearms. And it's the ammo goes right along with it, and a lot of that was helped by, and I'm filling our bucket here, but with our chamber designs, Joe, when 18 years ago, when fast forward to 30 TC and then the 6.5 Creedmoor, and then all the cartridges we've released since then, we've really got the chamber geometry thing pretty well down. We introduced those dimensions to SAMI, and now you can have anybody build a rifle with really good dimensions on the chamber, and it just lends itself to accuracy. Couple that with good match ammo, good hunting ammo, and it's easy peasy. It's crazy. So to help our listener that, okay, I see match ammo on the shelf, what does it mean? I think we should really start with what starts with everything in our company, which is the bullet.
I agree.
What makes a match bullet that's going to go into our match ammo? What makes a match bullet? a match bullet versus something else?
So all of the quote unquote match bullets, and I like how you worded this first when you were like this term match this, match that, precision that, because that term I think gets loosely tossed around.
Sure.
But when we, like, you come inside of the four walls of Hornady, when we use match or put match on a print or match on an ammo or bullet or whatever it is, the term is not used loosely here. When it has a match reference to it, it is truly held, whether it be a standard, tooling, machine, testing methods, whatever it is, propellant Jayden uses, inspection processes, whatever, it's truly held to the next level.
Okay.
And that applies to the bullet, applies to the ammo, which I'm sure you're going to talk about, and the powder, primers that we use, components to put it all together. But specifically on the bullet, Seth, to be a match bullet, those bullets are ran on certain machines.
Okay.
With certain tooling that is quote unquote match tooling as well.
Okay.
In other words, the tooling is checked dimensionally and the features in the tooling to make sure that it is perfect. So all of your draw dies, draw punches, and swedge dies and stuff are all held to match standard for the match bullet.
Okay.
Then once those bullets are manufactured with the match grade tooling, they go to the testing, which is the same test that we test all the other bullets, but the standard by which they're held to is different. So in other words, a match bullet has to shoot less than a half minute of angle for a 10-shot group, whereas you'll have hunting bullets that shoot maybe half-minute 5-shot groups or three-quarter-minute 5-shot groups. So you can imagine that the level it takes to achieve that precision with the match bullets is higher than a hunting bullet or a varmint bullet or whatever. So the match bullets are held to a tighter, if you will, standard when we test them.
Right on. And with that, we also do that testing at 200 yards versus 100 yards.
It's twice the distance. And then there's a bunch of other things we do when you're talking like the manufacturing process. When we're drawing jackets, the jackets are held to a tighter concentricity standard.
That's our
length.
Our amp jacket.
Amp jacket, yep. The way we draw them, length, weight, how many we make at a time on a tool set. There's a whole bunch of things that go into that, but rest assured that when Hornady uses match, we mean match, and it's held to a different standard, manufactured a little bit differently. The rules of match apply, and we hold it.
The only exception to that is with our eld-x, which is the hybrid of it's a purpose-built hunting bullet, but it is a match-accurate bullet. As Jason Hornady would say, it's a hunting bullet you can win a match with.
Yep. And we did that on purpose. That's the same. That bullet is held to the same standard as a match bullet because of the application that it's used in and the ammo SKUs.
And I've shot eld-x's at matches, and that was not my limiting factor.
Yeah. And you're not alone.
So the bullets go through it's the same procedure, but held to a tighter standard. The dimensions and the tolerances are held to a little bit tighter standard. They're tested a little bit more stringently. The QC checks a little bit more often, just to make sure that level of accuracy is held throughout the entire run. And then the entire run is generally a little smaller than a hunting bullet run would be. So
we're trying to make sure that, sorry, Jayden, we're trying to make sure the consistency is there. So bullet number 100 is bullet number 1,000 is bullet number 10,000. They're very consistent and uniform. That's the whole goal.
That's exactly what I was going to add to what you said, was that by nature of the word match or the application match, you're talking about competitive, disciplines really a lot, or the level of performance required for those. And there's, in addition to everything that you said, there's two additional metrics, and that is efficiency and consistency. And so when you look at the design of the match projectiles, you see that they're all very efficient compared to, say, their hunting counterparts, right? Mm-hmm. Where you may have to make a trade-off, for expansion or something like that. In the match lineup, everything must be in support of efficiency, consistency through that entire manufacturing process you're talking about, but it also starts with the design of the bullet.
Yep.
What are the dimensions of it? What is the weight of it? Where is the mass layout? All of those different things
and you're talking
into that as well.
And you're talking for the listeners, for the efficiency is aerodynamic efficiency, ballistic efficiency.
That's correct. So essentially, reducing your sensitivities to ranging errors, to wind deflection errors, to velocity variability, the things that are normal, that you're forced to operate within. A hand of how the performance works is in that bullet itself by its design.
Right on.
You can have access to the Hornady Handbook of Cartridge Reloading at your fingertips wherever you are, with the Hornady Reloading Guide app available for iPhone and Android. Check it out today.
And one thing you touched on, not specifically, but I wanted to bring it back up when you were talking about how everything is purpose-built and driven for accuracy and consistency and efficiency. Nowhere in there did you say terminal performance. And that's an important note that I want to make, that, match bullets as a whole, ours as well, generally have pretty thin jackets. When you're trying to make something perfectly concentric, it's easier to make it perfectly concentric if you're not working as much material. So jackets are a little thinner than hunting bullet. And for that reason, if you're varmint hunting, match bullets might be a great option. You're probably not going to like what they do to fur because that jacket's so thin, but there is no mechanism designed, whether that be jacket thickness or our interlock ring, to hold those bullets together. And we've talked about it in great lengths before. There's even a white paper published on our website that boat-tail hollow point style projectiles are notoriously bad for terminal performance, notoriously inconsistent, I should say.
Yes, it's true.
But that's something that we don't recommend as a company. We make world-class hunting bullets if hunting is your thing. We make world-class match bullets if match bullets are your thing. And if you would like to do both with the same bullet, we have a bullet for that with the eld-x. But we don't recommend our match-specific bullets for hunting for that reason.
That's right.
So we get these bullets made, and we've got a lot of them, from 22 cal down to 52 grains in 22 cal, all the way up to 416 and 500.
50 BMG.
Yeah, 50 BMG.
Yeah.
Got the 750 AMAX. We've got the 416 500 grain A-tip. That thing is huge.
That's a monster.
It is a monster. And we've got match bullets everywhere in between. eld-match, boat-tail hollow points. I mean, we've got a lot of them, right? So now we transition into taking that match bullet into match ammo. And a few years ago, probably 2018 timeframe, we did kind of a rebranding, if you will, of the packaging on our match ammo. We've got the white box, match right across it with the target. Just a cool look. You see that on the shelf or whatever, and it really stands out with that bright white. So for our premier line of match ammo, the bullets that are being used, what makes that match ammo, that quote-unquote match, which, Joe, you mentioned, we don't use that designation, with low regard. That's something that we purposefully put onto products and hold them to something better. So what makes match ammo match for us?
Well, essentially those same standards that are applied to the bullet need to be applied to the other three components that go into making ammunition. So your cartridge case, your propellant, and your primer.
Okay.
Propellant is probably the main driver of it.
I would agree with that.
There's quite a wide spectrum of performance that you get as you change propellant. The cartridge case itself obviously is limited by dimensions, right? It has to be within a certain tolerance dimensionally. And outside of that, there's obviously, some hardness stuff and some internal volume and consistency and stuff like that the cartridge case contributes to the overall performance. However, propellant is the main driver. And so one of our tasks is to make sure that all that work, engineering, manufacturing, quality control-wise, that was put into the production of the projectile is not sacrificed by a bad selection of components to propel that bullet.
Yeah.
And the propellant's the big one.
Propellant is the big one. There's a lot of things that, as a match shooter, you demand from your ammo, whether you're hand loading or buying factory ammunition. First and foremost, accuracy. If it's not accurate, what are we doing here?
And not all powders are the same. You can't take, 5 different powders that are arguably similar speed, similar charge rate, produce same velocity with the same bullet. They will not shoot the same.
Yeah. So what goes into the selection of the propellant specifically? Because, like you said, that's the lion's share of the other component selection. How do you deduce down what propellant you're going to select for a load?
A lot of it's based on experience.
Sure.
We've tested powders for a very, very long time. And the other things that you're looking for in match application are consistency and velocity, so standard deviation and extreme spread, and also temperature stability.
Yeah.
We don't know what match you're going to, and so it could be really cold out. I mean, we've all shot these matches, right? From jackhammering in between stages to you can't pound enough water, to stay hydrated. So
I've shot a lot of matches in Carhartt overalls.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we have to make sure that the propellant that we select is applicable for that broad range of application that a user might find himself in.
Okay.
And so those things considered, you start to narrow yourself down. Of all the propellants available in a applicable speed, you start to narrow those down into a classification, maybe 4 or 5 or 6 different propellant options that give you those other characteristics you're looking for. And then at that point, it is simply testing to determine which one is the best fit. And in general, what we will do is we'll start with the most optimum powder. Maybe that's from a availability standpoint.
Oh, that's a huge concern for us on the big scale.
Yeah, and the same concern that everybody has experienced these last 5 years in the OEM or the off-the-shelf powder market.
Yeah,
right?
consumer
I think
market.
all of us that have ever reloaded have seen that this is a different environment than it was 20 years ago, right?
Yeah,
Just
absolutely.
a few years ago.
A few years ago,
Right.
yeah.
And so that's a big consideration. Will this powder be available 2 or 3 years from now or 6 months from now or whatever that may be? But that said, we select the powder as long as it meets our thresholds for performance. Then we're going to test it through as many different systems as we possibly can. And mainly that's barrels, different barrels. That's where you
Rifling
see.
configurations.
Absolutely. Kind of similar to the whole Ford-off concept when we build a bullet file. We shoot it through as many different systems as possible, trying to gain, like a cross-sectional average of what is out there and it's going to be used in once it hits the market.
Mhm.
And then we pick whatever is best from that, whatever
Excellent.
wins.
So in that vein, we talked about this on a separate podcast, but as a general rule, and again, this is a generality, so not always true, but as a general rule, from a propellant standpoint, for those that are hand loading, what do you find is generally going to produce the best accuracy, temperature stability, and just overall consistency from a propellant type standpoint?
Sure. Your extruded temp stable series or single base series, so like the Hodgdon Extreme series is very good. The Alliant temp stable series, Reloader 16, 23, 26, 15 and a half, that series is really good. Vitavori makes some really good stuff. The Shooter's World stuff is shot very well. The traditional IMR stuff should not be overlooked either.
Mm-hmm.
There's quite a few options out there, and there's some new propellants that are coming along. You can find some of those from Hodgdon, the Stay Ball series.
Yeah,
Performs-
Winchester, Hodgdon, Winchester.
They perform very well.
You've got 3 burn speeds of that propellant now. You've got Stay-Ball Match, which is a kind of Varget type burn speed. You've got Stay-Ball 6.5, which is kind of a 4350. And you've got Stay-Ball HD, which is sort of like Retumbo in burn speed.
That's right.
And those are new, different technology, I'm guessing, from the manufacturing standpoint, because those are double-base spherical propellants, which traditionally haven't always been the most accurate or the most temperature stable.
Yeah, what we saw with those traditional propellants was they would work really good in some barrel bullet combinations, but others they would not. So in one barrel they would shoot the load fantastic when we were, sorting through powders, and then the next barrel we tested it through, it wasn't quite as good. What you see with the other powders I mentioned, the Hodgdon Extreme, the Alliance series, Vitavori, all those, is generally those propellants will perform very statically across different barrels and
The
bullets.
consistency that we're after. And then from a temperature performance, that's something that you guys test, and I've tested it as well. I think that's something that the consumer doesn't quite understand how much thought goes into that. It is a careful consideration, and there have been several instances where we've gone through, tested it for accuracy and P&V, and everything looks great. Throw it in the oven, throw it in the freezer. Again, we address that in another podcast, but it's not like we're throwing this in an oven. We have this very special.
Let's call it a ballistics testing oven.
Yeah, it's
not a kitchen oven.
It's not a kitchen oven, and we heat it up to 120 or 140 degrees for a certain duration of time. We freeze it down to 0, minus 20, minus 40, minus 60 in some cases, and those velocity swings you get based on temperature. We've gone away from a propellant and switched just for that reason. We're talking about match ammo, but that's a big concern with dangerous game ammo as well. With our Outfitter line, which it was designed to go from the eastern tip of Africa
the desert to the North Pole.
Yeah. So with match ammunition specifically, that temperature stability is something that we take serious. Now, I'm going to try to frame this and make it as friendly as possible But there are instances where the manufacturing has to go on. We have to make ammo, and the availability of premier propellants has been affected by things that have caused certain propellants to become hard to find. How do you navigate that? And now with powders that are coming out, the newer stuff, how do you get through that to find something that still works?
It's very challenging. When I first started, be about 12 years ago now, I mean, that wasn't a concern. Like, you're swimming in Varget, swimming in H4350, swimming in, the Reloader series stuff. And that's not the case anymore. And you're exactly right. We still have to support our customers, and we still have to maintain those standards.
Right.
And those things are difficult sometimes to pair up. But what we have found, and what we've really worked towards, is when there's a powder that's available, but it has some sort of performance issue to it, whether it's the temps aren't up to the standard we're willing to tolerate, or the level of dispersion that it produces is not good enough. We've worked with those propellant manufacturers to try to make that performance a little bit more tolerable. And we've been pretty successful with that.
Excellent.
Because it has been difficult, and a lot of the issues you see with the propellant supply are logistically related.
Yeah, it's 100%.
So it's not that the manufacturer is being negligent or they don't care or whatever it may be. It's just, hey, in the current market, especially during COVID or post-COVID, I mean, I think all of us have had a logistical cost that we've experienced to some level.
Well, and that spans propellant for us, but I've got friends that paid for next day air for some frozen meat. They had bought some really expensive steaks. They paid to have it next day aired on dry ice. Everything should be good. 7 days later,
oh man,
their meat is obviously bad, and they still paid for the next day air. So they were out 100% of their cost plus the cost of their order.
Yeah.
And stuff like that has happened to everybody. And it's not on the powder manufacturers. It's logistically, it's just where we're at right now. Right. So I just wanted to bring that up because I've lived it a little bit, and I have seen what goes on when, all right, we have to make a powder selection change, and it goes through all of the standards, and we still hold those standards, and we find an alternative. And it takes being creative sometimes. It takes personal relationships with those powder vendors to be able to find an alternative. And it's been remarkable. Luckily, like I said, we have some really good personal relationships, and we've been able to help them change some chemistry and some shape and find propellants and invent new propellants that do all the things.
Yeah.
And that's been cool.
Yeah. And for the listener, generally we have a backup powder. We don't base everything off just one thing. And I was at a match this weekend out in Wyoming, and it was really cool to hear, being out in the wild, talking to guys that are just doing this on their own dime. And one of them just came up and gave us a compliment and said, hey, during COVID, you guys really did a good job. Like, there was Hornady stuff on the shelf. It's like, there wasn't a ton of it, but there was nothing else there, and there was some Hornady stuff on the shelf. And part of that is because of that testing, right? I mean, if we only had that one propellant available and no other opportunities, well, logistic issues come up. It's like, there's no ammo then.
Yeah. So when you have backups
we
and
try
backups
to have that in place, yes.
Yep. And then that allows you guys to be more strategic. When you can look at, here's our production schedule, here's the propellant we have, here's the delivery schedule. Well, we can shuffle the deck a little bit. And that's something that has been huge, monumental during the COVID and post-COVID to get ammunition back on the shelf when the purchasing power of the local economy has just been to buy everything.
Yeah, and maybe another point to bring up for the listener is the guys here at Hornady that are managing that and making those decisions are the same guys that you've had on this podcast talking about technical stuff. The ones that care and are passionate and know the level of performance because we're out there doing it. Mm-hmm. We're the ones making those decisions. Yeah. And so hopefully that puts some people at ease that it's not just some, and in no derogatory intention there, like just some random engineer, person in production that's saying, well, this powder is listed as being approved, go ahead and use it. No, that's not the case. I mean, we're constantly involved in this process and saying, hey, let's do this and this and this to make sure that that performance that we know that we need is there for the customer when they get that box.
We've talked about it a bunch. Joe brought it up in probably every podcast we've ever talked about, and he's seen it again almost 2 decades now. He has seen, okay, I'm a passionate bench rest guy. I'm going to make darn sure that these 208 AMAXs are going to be, I'm going to do everything I can because I'm going to shoot them this weekend at the Bench Rest Nationals or whatever.
Yep.
And then that just morphs into different shooting sports. And that's a good point, Jayden. I'm glad you brought that up. And I hope it does resonate with the listener that there's not just a list of propellants for .308 Winchester 168 grain eld-match ammo. Oh, yeah, whatever, just pick one and go. I mean, everything is done purposefully by somebody who understands the implications of the decision.
And cares.
Yeah.
Correct.
So the big one, like I said, the lion's share, that's the propellant. So getting into the other two components, we got primers and cases. Primers, it's not just plug and play with that either.
No, we've seen large differences in the performance of primers. Some of them differences to the point where they're not safe to use in those combinations, maybe. Delayed ignition, stuff like that, issues at temperatures, right?
Mm-hmm.
This primer is perfectly fine at 40 degrees and above. It'll work just as you expect, but it goes below that temperature and you're starting to have problems. Higher SDs, higher extreme spreads. Hang fires on the extreme end, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, primers are not all equal, and that gets paired with the propellant too. I mean,
those two kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah.
I mean, they really, there's a relationship there that I don't think a lot of people think of,
Really?
Yeah, this powder works great, but it has to have this primer, or this primer really works good, but it really needs that powder. There's a relationship there that you've seen. I know you guys have seen it time and time again, where you use that one with that one, and you purposely pair them up.
Right. Yeah, we have a lot of our ammo specs will call out, it has to be this primer and it has to be this powder. If that powder is not available, then it might have to be this primer and this powder. And those things aren't cross-compatible.
Yeah. That's a balancing act that nobody gets to see. That's a real peek behind the curtain when you're trying to make millions upon millions of rounds of ammunition a year.
That's right.
And stay ahead on making cases and then priming those cases to stay ahead of ammo.
Yeah.
It's a challenge.
Yeah. Well, let's dive into that last component, which is cartridge cases. Joe, I know you had, I believe, your early engineering career here at Hornady.
That's where I cut my teeth.
in cartridge cases. And then, we don't need to talk about it in great lengths, but I do want you to mention some of the things that have happened in the last year with our cartridge case plant, because there's been some big changes in a couple different aspects, the size and the quality.
Sure.
And walk us through cartridge case and what goes into a quote-unquote match. Yeah.
Well, I'd clear back from the beginning, and the way I was taught from Mitch and Ron Bond and those guys is we have one standard, I guess, when we build our cases, and we don't care what cartridge it's going to be loaded, but the cases are all built the same way, and they're all held to the same tolerances, standards, hardnesses, all of those. Unless there's a spec that we have to meet for something different, all of our cases would be quote-unquote premium or match.
Awesome.
We don't make two different levels of cases. They're all the same. So I would like our listeners to know that. And then here lately, we've put a lot of time and money into how we manufacture those cases. So the tooling that's used, the measuring devices, the machine that the toolings goes into, to try to build a more, I'm going to call it a consistent case, because the dimensions and the quality and everything on the tooling is still there. It's still the same tool, forming the case to the same spec. But the way at which it got to there, we've tried to change that with materials and specifically machines.
Yeah.
So that's been the last, 5 or 8 years. We've really put a lot of time and money and effort into that.
Yeah.
And that's just been an effort to maintain the quality that we've always had with the volumes that we need now.
Yeah, and we need volume.
And we need
to
more
help
cases.
Support that volume, we just did a rather large expansion on our case plant, brand new machines. And what was really unique or admirable, I suppose, is when they were building the expansion, they were also purchasing the machines that were going in there and setting those up. And when Fire Marshal gives the stamp of approval,
you're moving in.
You're moving in, and it's operational. And so, like you mentioned, Joe, we've been able to keep that quality and add the volume, and that's just been huge. And had we not have Jason and Steve Hornady, who have their employees' best interest in mind, and they have the best interest of the consumer in mind, to just build the facility, just build it. And it was expensive. And you got to commit that you're going to now be able to produce this much brass, and you can't just sit on it. Because if things start to slow down, you've committed. Now you've got that much capital investment and more employees. And it's just cool to see our brass capability expand so much, knowing that Hornady, from even my time, 10 years ago, for you, Joe, almost 20 years ago now, to see where we've come in our market presence. And I feel like Hornady white box match ammo, because of the reasons we just talked about, has become synonymous with what you mentioned about bullets. Consistent, it's efficient, it's accurate, it's all the things you want. And for the most part, all things considered, it's affordable.
Yeah. That's one we haven't even touched on.
No.
Is that you can afford to, it's not like custom hand-loaded ammunition from Pop's gun shop that you can't, I mean, it's $50, $80 a box of 20, and you just can't afford to go shoot it at the volume you need for the discipline that you're in.
Yep. And so all of that stuff put together, the components, the bullets, the manufacturing, the quality control, the testing, all of that comes together to make Hornady match ammo some of the best ammunition on the market. And I know we've all shot it at matches. I've been, I like to hand load from a match out of posterity. I know how to hand load. I should hand load. I can guarantee everything's right. But then this, that, and the other thing happens, and it's like, oh man, I got a match in 2 weeks.
Go.
You know what? I'm just gonna order some match ammo. I'm just gonna run it, and it's never been a limiting factor. And to that point, I've mentioned it on the podcast before, and Justin Watson, Oklahoma, he's in the running to win every match he shoots, and for a long time, and I'm sure he shoots other stuff too, but he was running Hornady 6 Creedmoor 108 eld-match.
They all call it white box ammo. I'm like, it's match ammo.
Yeah.
So it's a shout out to those guys. It's match ammo.
Oh, yeah.
White box makes it sound like some commodity white box, but that's how it's known, Seth, with that white box with red match. I mean, it must resonate because people call it, that's that Hornady white box ammo. That's good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And those that crew in Oklahoma, you want to talk about a force to be reckoned with in the precision rifle world. But so that's the white box Hornady match ammo. Well, we've got match bullets that are found in other ammo lines. So let's talk about those other lines real quick, just to spin up our consumer on, okay, you've got American Gunner and you've got Black. Those two lines of ammo, they feature some of our match bullets. So what separates Black and American Gunner from the Hornady white boxed match ammunition? Because you get the bullet, but what's different that one, it's more economical when you just see it on the shelf. So what drives that, and what kind of standard differences are there for those two SKUs?
Yeah. Well, you have like a whole spectrum of users out there, right? You have a guy
that I was going with
that doesn't have a ton of extra,
expendable income.
Expendable income, exactly. All the way to the guy that's not an issue, right? And there's a performance. Everybody wants the optimum performance, but considering that, because we've all been in those positions to one extent or another, we've kind of taken like a good, better, best approach to the offerings. And so what you see there is like American Gunner is very high performance ammunition, but at a more economical price. And some of that comes from, say, the propellant selection or stuff like that. We're holding the match standards, but we're selecting components in a way where we can drive the price down enough that guy can afford it and still have really good performance.
And shoot volume, because a lot of that stuff, some of this stuff is intended for
3-gun.
It's intended for, Gunner. Black is, black ARs, consuming more ammo. So if you consume more, it costs more. So is that where you were kind of driving towards? We're trying to tailor it. We built it for a purpose, in other words.
Yeah. And there is a cost associated with the most premier level of performance.
Yeah.
We're picking components and spending time in engineering, production, and quality control, and there's cost to all that. And so that's where you see some of that happen, like with the match line that features the eld-match bullet and the best powders you can possibly get your hands on. I mean, there's cost to all that, and you see that it costs a little bit more money than, say, the American Gunner box, but you're not leaving a ton on the table by saving a little bit of money and going that route.
Yeah.
And then the black line, like Joe had mentioned, that line is more tailored to the gas guns.
Okay.
The
Where we
MPV.
measure port pressure
Sure.
on some loads to make sure the propellant's optimal for that.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're selecting propellants that are designed to burn out in a little bit shorter barrels, which is typically more common, right? You have, let's say, an AR-10 and a 6.5 Creed or a 6 Creed or something. It's very common for that to be a 20-inch barrel or a 22-inch barrel, where the bolt gun stuff is usually 24 plus. So yeah, we're selecting components there that lend themselves to performing a little bit better in the gas gun platforms, the semi-autos.
Did you know that Hornady has a full line of reloading tools and equipment? Whether you're brand new to the reloading game or a seasoned veteran, we have tools that will work awesome with your setup. Check out all of Hornady's reloading tools at Hornady.com.
One thing you were talking about, some economics of, say, American Gunner. One of the ways that we also keep costs down is by limiting the amount of options. So let's say .308 Winchester, for example. Talk about 155 or 168 grain match bullet. In a boat tail hollow point configuration, we make those bullets faster than 1 per second when they're running. So yeah, you're not getting the big, heavy, long, or the tips. But man, 155 or 168 grain boat tail hollow point bullet, we'll thump those babies out with incredible precision at an incredible rate. So you're saving some money just on the volume and ease of production.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another thing.
Sure.
And like you said, the propellant selection is also different. Same cases.
Yeah. And then end used. I mean, let's face it, we're not, if you're engaging targets from 50 yards to 350 yards, the level of precision required depending on the size of the target is obviously different than if you're engaging a 1 minute plate at 700 yards.
Yeah.
So I mean that we've tried to take those things into consideration when we're tailoring the ammo to the end use case.
Mm-hmm. Got
So
it.
I mean, I would encourage our customers to really take a look at what am I doing? What game am I playing, or what do I need, and then make your dollars stretch as far as you can.
Yeah, that makes sense. And even, for me as an employee, I've got an HS Precision rifle built by the guys at HS Precision. It's HS everything. You could call it a factory rifle. Thing shoots bug holes with everything I've ever shot in it for the most part. The black 6mm Creedmoor with the 105 boat tail hollow point shoots every bit as good as my hand-loaded 110A tips. I mean, I don't know what it is about that configuration and maybe my particular barrel, but that 105 boat tail hollow point at 2950 just puts bullet on top of bullet on top of bullet. It's simply incredible. I got some of that was cosmetically blimmed, had some dings, dents, scratches, whatever. It shoots so good. It's almost scary. It makes you wonder, like, wow, should I really be buying the 108s? But again, the 108, more efficient bullet. So for the really long range stuff, just a little bit better. But thanks for walking us through that, because I think that is some questions. Okay, eld-match, it's X dollars. Well, here's American Gunner in a similar configuration, and it's just a little cheaper. What's the difference?
Mm-hmm.
So the good, better, best scenario is kind of I think a good way to lay that out.
Well, and talking about cost, and back to what we talked about earlier about how many guys are shooting factory ammo with a factory rifle and winning matches.
Yeah.
You see it all the time. I watched it this weekend. It kind of forces you to analyze what is your time worth as a reloader or hand loader, right? Because it used to be if you wanted match-winning performance, you had to make your own stuff, essentially. Assemble your own components, right, ammunition-wise. But now with the quality of the factory match ammo that's available, you have guys that are showing you the level of performance capability of this ammunition. Guys are winning matches using factory ammo. So you really should ask yourself, how much are you worth? What is your time worth? How much time do you have to spend prepping brass, weighing charge weights, doing all this stuff? And at the end of the day, because there's still an advantage, right? It's in your control. You can make it as perfect as you want.
Absolutely.
But is that worth the cost for you to do it? Don't know. You have to
answer that for yourself.
And I would say with a lot of these guys, probably not. I mean, why do you have Mr. Watts shooting factory 108 Creedmoor and winning matches? Probably because he came to that realization. He can't hand load better enough or better at all than the factory ammo is producing for what he needs to go use at a match.
Yeah. It's got amazing rifle system. It shoots great with whatever you put in there. And now what's your time worth? People got kids and sports and work and whatever, and it just makes a lot of sense.
The one that's really drives it home for me personally is 300 PRC with 225 match, white box match. You can go load, because I've loaded a lot of 300 PRC.
Dating back almost 18 years ago.
Seriously. Yeah. So I've shot a lot of that, and now you have that ammo, and you can shoot targets as far as you really want to be shooting targets with the match ammo versus what you used to do with hand loads.
Yep.
So the juice really isn't worth the squeeze on, especially that one really highlights it to me because the ranges are so far.
Yep.
1,000, 1,200, 1,500, 2,000.
Yeah. That really is remarkable. You can get, so here's one very similar to that. This was last summer, I think. I can't remember. Gone smell blind. I think it was last summer. There was a media event for the release of a new rifle from Remington, kind of the new Remington. It was their 700 long range HS stock. They were chambered in 7mm PRC. And we had about a dozen riders descend on the FTW ranch down in Texas for a media event to get hands on with the new Remington rifles. They rolled out their Alpha 1 rifle, which is really a nice platform. And we shot the 7 PRC. And for a lot of folks, that was their first time shooting the 7 PRC. So we go through, kind of a typical SAM course at FTW, and everybody got proficient. Well, we're up on what I believe is called the Crusader range, and there's some long balls out there. So we have Hornady factory match ammo, 180 grain eld-match. We have factory Remington 700 rifles chambered in 7 PRC. They lay down. Joseph Von Benedict is one of them. Rider. Several other riders, 1,800 yards. Joseph went 5 for 5 at 1,800. Just went, oh, how far's that one? Wow, that's a long way. What do I need to come up? All right, give her a shot.
Dang,
drops them in there.
I rest my case.
So you're shooting factory rifle with a factory ammo at more than a mile.
Yeah.
And the 300 PRC, like you mentioned, that was the first one that was like, holy cow. We're talking 2,000-yard engagements on targets that you're hitting on purpose on your first shot.
Yeah. With factory ammo to factory gun. That drives home the point.
Well, and I think for anybody who's done that ELR type shooting, you fully understand. And if you haven't done it, you need to know this, that at those ranges, what matters most is consistency. Consistency in the bullet and consistency in your velocity. Mm-hmm. Without those two things, you're shooting a shotgun pattern out there. And for factory ammo to produce those results at those ranges, it has to be consistent. Mm-hmm. I love it. Great. It makes me want to go shoot stuff far away right now.
Yeah. And it turns it turns all the mirrors back on us because now it's back to being our fault again.
Yeah.
We can't blame the ammo. We can't blame the gun. We can't blame the barrel. It's just us.
Yep. Yeah. Well, it's easy when you're shooting XM118LR to say it was a transonic gremlin. That's why I missed.
That's right.
Sure. Bullet went transonic and it's unstable. So match-wise, you guys got anything coming up? It's June 14th. I can think of a couple matches coming up.
Next week for me.
Where are you shooting?
Hornady PRC in Utah.
Yeah, the Hornady PRC.
That's one of my favorite matches. A very difficult match. Usually a lot of wind, long-range targets. But it's a field-style match. I mean, you're shooting out in the high desert, and I love it. I mean, I hope the wind blows. I love the wind when it blows.
I love when the wind blows. I
love it.
Last year, Clay Blackadder out there cleaning house with a 6.5 Creedmoor with 153 A-tips at 2650, I think.
Yeah, he's 2650, 2700, somewhere right in there. But yeah.
But a field-style match exactly, and that match heralded as kind of a mini finale because the best shooters show up, and obviously you have high winds, then you have variable winds, and then you have wind gradient, then you have uphill and downhill winds, then you have all kinds of crazy stuff going on, shooting off cliff edges and stuff.
It's an
equalizer
match.
Beautiful facility, amazing. George and Brian at GA Precision do an amazing job. As match directors, and it takes a village to make that thing happen, but it is a match. And then also coming up, we have the Hornady NRL Hunter match.
That's this weekend.
Hunter. Yeah.
We got guys going to that one too.
Yeah, down in Price, Utah. Going to be another great match and two different styles of shooting, but somewhat similar. Jayden, for you, and you just got back from an NRL
Just got
Hunter.
back, yeah. I did the Cody, Wyoming, the Gunworks match up there. That was incredible. Over 18 stages, there was one stage where you had less than 15 degree angle of fire. Pretty much everything was 15 to 30 degrees. Obviously, Northwest Wyoming is a is a bit okay on the eye.
Yeah. If you're into like beautiful mountains and stuff or whatever.
Yeah. Really, really great match. Those guys did a good job. A cool venue. Most places were shooting flat, and so that one really gives you a taste of something different. Probably going to be my last match for the year. I've got quite a few military training trips stacked up here going into fall, and then I drew my elk tag. So get ready back home. I'm coming home.
Yeah, with 7 PRC.
Yeah,
that's what I like to hear. Yep, great stuff. Well, hopefully I get a chance to do some matches this summer. I love to shoot the Hornady PRC in Utah. I won't be able to make it this year. I wanted to go to the NRL Hunter down in Price, Utah, but I'll be gone doing something else. But really looking forward to getting out. And we've talked about it a lot, but my time's not worth very much, but I don't have a lot of it, so I'm shooting factory. Is there anything else regarding factory match ammo that makes match ammo that you want the listener to know?
And I think we did a pretty good job of covering it.
I would just encourage them if they haven't tried it. If you've been shooting for a long time and reloading and hand loading for a long time, and when you started doing it was back when you had to do that to get performance, I would encourage you to go try it and run the numbers. Do the math. How long does it take you to make 20 rounds of your hand loaded stuff? And that includes case preparation and weighing charges and seating bullets and doing any sort of inspection. Do you check concentricity? What do you do? Figure out all that time, and then how much are you worth an hour? Do the math. See if it's worth it to do that, and then go buy a box of factory. See if the performance is any different, and if it's not or it's better, I don't know. Give it a try.
That's really all it takes is a box. We've done a lot of chirping about sample size, and is 30 good? Yes, you should try to get 30. Is 10 better than 5? Yes. But 20 really seems to be the line of demarcation where you're getting right up there with statistical significance, and you're starting to kind of populate a normal distribution of, let's say dispersion.
Right.
That cone of fire takes a box. It takes a box of 20.
Yep.
Lay down 300 yards with a chronograph or whatever. See how it does for you versus your hand loads. You might be surprised.
Absolutely.
Yep. One thing before we sign off here that I wanted to touch on, Jayden just mentioned inspecting your hand loads. Hornady ammo, again, for the listener that might not be privy to this, every single round of ammunition that you buy, you pull out of the box, a human hand grabbed that piece of ammo, a human eye looked at it and said, this is good enough to go in the box for our consumer, and put it in the box. Every single round that you buy in a Hornady box is hand inspected.
Yep. And the stuff those folks find blows my mind.
Mine too.
Because I'm out here at the same facility that all the ammo is being inspected in, and they'll bring me stuff sometimes just for, I guess my opinion or whatever. And they'll hand me
that's worth anything.
Right. They'll hand me, 5 cartridges and just kind of,
look at you.
Obviously, I know they're an inspector and they want me to find out what's wrong with this ammo, so I'm like looking and kind of embarrassingly look up at them and say, well, what's wrong with it? Yeah. And they go, oh, well, if you hold it in the light like this and you kind of look right here, there's like a little bit of a scuff. I believe you, I guess.
Let me get my magnifying glass out.
I mean, the level of stuff, the quality that they can achieve is incredible.
Yep. That's awesome. So again, factory ammo, whether that's any hunting ammo or our match ammunition, that is hand inspected, and that's something that
100%.
We've been doing since forever, and we're going to continue to do then, because it gives you that level of quality and assurance that you're getting a premium product. So now I'm going to wrap that all up. That's match ammo in a nutshell. And we've been asking every single guest on the show, shot out of a cannon, between hunting, matches, target shooting, plinking, end of days, zombie apocalypse. You got to pick one cartridge and one bullet. Joe, what are you going to pick? For the rest of your life, you get one cartridge, one bullet.
Where I get
as many rifles as you want, or pistols, but one cartridge, one bullet.
I hate this question. You do it all the time.
What are you going to do?
Oh, if I got one to do all the stuff that I love to do, I got to go with my 300 PRC.
Yeah.
300 PRC, 212s. I can do it all.
Done and done. Didn't even have to think about it.
You made me pick one.
Yeah.
I love hunting and I love shooting and I like long range shooting. I kind of got it. I mean, I could get by with a PRC or a Creedmoor, but what happens if I just need a 30?
Yeah. Well, I chose a 7 because Jonathan Berry, one of our sponsored guys, he's shooting a 7 PRC at the Hornady PRC
Is he really?
match. Yeah.
He's in my squad. He's going to be a squad in front of me. I got to go.
So I've heard. So hopefully he shows up.
I
with
will
that thing.
check that out.
He placed, I think it was 14th here,
He's-
not a couple weeks ago, with a
he's-
7 PRC.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That'll be fun. I will
So
check. He's a
that's-
squad in front of me.
I chose the 7 so I could do the
But I mean, let's face it, 7 would be close. I mean,
But
if you're
you're
gonna
going-
if you're gonna make me pick one,
300 PRC.
I mean, a 7 or a 30. I
yeah.
don't know.
Well, you
People
touch
are-
blue, make it true. You said 300 PRC with the 212, the LDX.
Yep, that's what I would choose. If
Now-
you're making me choose
Yeah.
one.
So, Jayden, I saved you for last because I anticipate a non-traditional answer.
From a non-traditional Jayden.
Yep.
Okay, without hesitation, 410 with buckshot.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. Obviously not. You said zombie apocalypse, right?
Yeah.
And hunting
Well, it's
and recreational shooting.
it's everything.
And everything. 6 arc
Oh,
with
see-
man, it hurts because 6.5 Creedmoor is there too. Why?
yeah.
Because I can do everything with it.
And
Yeah.
you can
Well,
shoot a
what
lot.
bullet?
And you can shoot a lot of it.
Yeah, my only hesitation with saying 6 arc in that is I love hunting elk, and I feel like I could do that. I have that capability, but it would grossly narrow my opportunities. It would have
Yeah.
to be an absolutely perfect shot on an elk.
At a very traditional
There would
range.
be a lot of elk I wouldn't shoot that I could have with something else, would be another way to put it.
Yeah.
But other than that, that little cartridge does everything. I've shot it to a mile. My 6-year-old daughter can shoot it. The barrels don't wear out. It's got a lot of benefits. I mean,
Yeah.
Creedmoor's right there with it
Yeah.
for
you're
like a across the board thing.
You're choosing arc. So
Yeah.
what bullet? 103X? What do you think? 90 grain CX?
87 VMAX?
Yeah.
Probably the 108.
108
eld-m
eld-match.
Yeah. So I have to pick the ammo that lasts me
or
the
the
rest of
bullet.
my life too.
That's what he said.
I don't,
I
this
don't
is
like
not-
that. No, it's not a fair
Oh,
question.
and then you said
no.
you like to hunt, so I thought you'd lean towards the LDX because it's got those.
Well, yeah, but
You need to take a look at
this
where
is
we
just
work.
not a.
We're-
I don't like this question.
everybody's answered
This
it.
is
Jayden.
not what my job is.
Yeah, that's true.
This
well,
is the
good news,
opposite of my job.
the good news is that none of this is factual, and we do throw in you can have as many rifles as you want. So if you want to have a 20-pound match gun and a 6-pound backcountry gun and a 12-pound field rifle, everything's groovy.
Oh, I thought it was like one.
No,
Okay.
it's just the cartridge and the bullet, and you can buy factory ammo. You can hand load it.
I'm sure listeners are dropping off by the second at this rambling that I have.
Well,
going
you
on,
got to
so-
pick a bullet. We're not going to end the show. Everybody's got to know.
Yeah, the 103, because I do want to still shoot elk. And although I may go on 15 hunts and only take one shot, I do want the LDX for it.
shoot him in the
There,
head.
I told you. I hope you're happy.
Okay, I'm very happy, and more importantly, it's going to help with the lineage of the podcast because we're asking every single person that's on the show.
Every podcast, like,
Well, I'm not going to ask you again.
well, what if it changes over time?
The world may never know.
I mean, if the chances of the zombie apocalypse become substantially less likely, that probably changes my answer.
To Creedmoor.
Yeah.
Okay.
It pushes me into Creedmoor.
All right. Well, guys, before this devolves, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, of course, man.
No
Always a
problem.
pleasure.
Anytime, Seth. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Guys, hope you enjoyed this podcast and you learned a little something about what goes into Hornady match and what that means. And hopefully you understand that we don't use that term loosely. It's something that we strive for, the quality, the consistency, the efficiency, whether that be bullets or whether that be ammo, and that we hand inspect that ammo. So when you buy it, you pull it out of the box, it looks like jewelry and performs to your expectations. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll catch you on the next one.